Hi, this video podcast is on grassroots lobbying. Sometimes grassroots lobbying, which is obviously another form of lobbying than what we sometimes refer to as direct legislative or regulatory lobbying. Grassroots lobbying is sometimes referred to as a form of indirect lobbying. Again, generally the direct lobbying is what lobbyists and maybe different associations or groups or even individuals obviously do with legislative and regulatory entities. Grassroots lobbying involves usually members of the general public. Perhaps they are directly impacted by a particular bill or issue, but oftentimes they're not. The grassroots lobbying is an effort to get more of the general public to contact their elected officials. And this also helps members of the public to, in essence, become lobbyists and trying to influence decision makers. Again, legislators or appointed officials and staff at executive branch rulemaking agencies. Those involved in grassroots lobbying generally intend to influence decision makers by trying to get the general public to be involved in the regulatory or legislative process. And this type of grassroots lobbying really requires educating often large groups of individuals and then essentially mobilizing them in a call to action, usually involving efforts to get specific organizations or community groups or perhaps large numbers of individuals to become involved in an effort to pass or defeat legislation or regulations. Educating the general public, of course, can take multiple forms. Direct mail, social media is popular these days, certainly paid or even free media, maybe press conferences, press releases, other efforts. Outreach efforts are key to a successful grassroots lobbying effort. And oftentimes the media plays a really critical role in these outreach efforts. But in my mind, it first begins with educational efforts so that the targeted group or the general public understands the particular issue or bill or regulation. And then mobilizing the general public is, of course, the effort to get the members of the public that you've targeted to act as you desire, to make phone calls to legislators, meet with those legislators, send a letter, or a postcard, or place a phone call to their elected or appointed officials, perhaps post things on social media, write a letter to the newspaper, for example. So again, whether it results in phone calls or letter writing, some even have, businesses boycotted or there's a demonstration at the state capitol. Clearly, there are multiple forms that grassroots lobbying can take. It depends largely on the audience and what the proponents of the grassroots effort hope to accomplish in their outreach efforts to affect or help with the direct lobbying efforts. As I mentioned, the use of social media has become far more prevalent these days in grassroots lobbying, obviously with the potential reach of the internet, websites, social media like Instagram and Facebook. These days are bigger than traditional forms of media, and they're an easy communication tool and can be targeted, obviously, to different audiences, which really enables proponents of grassroots to better organize and interact with folks who are using social media. And you can definitely grow your potential group of supporters and assist your efforts if you have a strong social media presence. And frankly, can also be a far less costly form of organizing than some of the traditional methods. In addition to the general public, some large businesses, for example, may undertake their own forms of grassroots lobbying, develop an action plan in which they call on employees of their business or their industry to ask them to participate in some of the indirect lobbying efforts by reaching out to their local elected official, making phone calls, writing a letter, somehow contacting those elected officials, often even with personal visits. So that helps grow perhaps local support for the position of like a large organization or a particular industry, for example, in their efforts. So these are all different forms of grassroots lobbying, particularly at the state level.